All right, friends, welcome. We're getting started. We'll give it a few minutes for people to come in. Then we'll start the chant, and then I'll bring in our monastic guest for today. Hello, Sean, Metika, Christine, welcome. Hello, Ian, welcome. And Karen, welcome. The West Coast contingent is strong already today. Hello, Douse and Kala, welcome. Hello, Frank, Diego, Yankee. Hello, Malika. Good morning to you. And of course, it's morning for Malika because she's in down under. She's in Aussie land. This is when we first started the Maggasekha Discord 6 years ago. We had Australian bhikkhunis on with us. And so when we would do our Sunday night sutta readings, it would be Monday morning for them. So we called it Sutta Monday. And we have that tradition to this day. Even though our Australian bhikkhunis have gone on their way, they're not with us anymore. All right, so why don't we get started? We have a good amount of people on with us. We'll get started with the chant, then an introduction, and then I'll bring on Bhante. So let's share screen. Hello, Gautam and Bella. Welcome. We'll get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Aneka jati sangsarang sadha visang anibhisang kahakarakang gave santo dukkha jati punapunang kahakaraka dittosi punagehang nakahasi sabbate pasuka bagga gahakutang visankitang visankhara gatang chittang tanhanang kayang ajjaga Yaddahave patu bhavanti dhamma atapino jayato brahmanassa attassa kankar vepyanti sabba yato pajanati sahetu dhammang Yaddahave patu bhavanti dhamma atapino jayato brahmanassa Attassa kankavapayanti sabba yato kayang paccanang ve avedi yaddahave patu bhavanti dhamma atapino jayato brahmanassa vidhupayang tittati marasenang suryova ubhasayang antilakkanti. All right, English. Craving is the builder of this house. Through many a birth I have wandered in samsara, seeking but not finding the builder of this house. Sorrowful it is to be born again and again. O house builder, thou art seen. Thou shalt build no house again. All thy rafters are broken, thy ridgepole is shattered. My mind has attained the unconditioned. Achieved is the end of craving. All doubts vanish. All doubts vanish as phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin ardent, absorbed. His doubts all vanish when he discerns what has a cause. As phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin ardent, absorbed, his doubts all vanish when he penetrates the end of conditions. As phenomena grow clear to the Brahmin ardent, absorbed, he stands routing the troops of Mara like the sun that illumines the sky. Sadhu, sadhu. All right. All right, friends. See, welcome Abby and welcome Visakha. Oh, I see we have a bunch of people right off the bat. Usually we don't have so many people this early. It must be because of who our monastic guest is. So, friends, welcome to Dhammapalooza, the 2-hour weekly festival of Dhamma, where the Maggasekha community comes together to do a variety of Dhamma activities, from chanting to meditation and everything in between. Today, we have a monastic guest. So usually what we do when we have a monastic guest is we bring them in, and most of the time they have a certain time limit. So we have to make sure that we honor their time limit, and however long that they're willing to come on with us, it's always appreciated. And so what I'll usually do is ask for the Bhante or the Ayah to give an introduction of who they are. And then maybe we'll talk between the two of us a little bit. And if you have any questions, you put it in the chat, right? And then for however long Bhante is going to be here with us, then he'll answer questions for you. So I'm going to bring in Bhante Sanathavihari right now. Bhante, can you hear me?
Yes, Bhante. Vandana Bhante.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So I believe we met in person at Ayasoma's ordination, didn't we?
Yes, Bhante.
Yes. Yeah, we met. I know we met in person very briefly on that one day. And it's been a pleasure to be with you on Bhante Saranapala's bi-weekly sessions on the Urban Buddhist Monk.
Yes, Bhante.
So it's good. I'm happy that you came on with us, and I'm happy that I have the opportunity to talk to you. So,
thank you.
So why don't you give us a brief introduction? Who are you? Where do you stay, and where you're from, and how you became a monastic, and all that. Whatever you'd like to share.
Okay, Bhante. I guess this is my origin story, huh? Yeah. So my name is Sanathavihari Bhikkhu, or Los Angeles Sanathavihari Bhikkhu, not to be confused with other Sanathaviharis. So I grew up in Los Angeles, California, mostly in the Koreatown, Hollywood, and North Hollywood districts. And, I always had some interest in Buddhism. I had a lot of friends in the Asian community. In high school, read a lot of Buddhist philosophy, Eastern philosophy books, spiritual books. Then I joined the Air Force Reserve right out of high school and was in it for 9 years, got deployed to Iraq in 2009, and then Afghanistan in 2011, and then again in 2013. And it was during my last deployment where I really started getting into Dhamma and practicing Dhamma, not only reading about it, which I was doing for many years, but I decided, if I can practice Dhamma out here in Kandahar, then it could probably work anywhere else. And, not to my surprise, it actually did work. And people noticed it around me. And we actually formed like a Buddhist sangha for the first time that I know of in Afghanistan for probably hundreds of years. And we're actually recognized by the U.S. military. We got a sponsorship from a Tibetan monastery in India to do this. So it was pretty amazing what we were able to do in that short time that I was there for close to 7 months in my last deployment. So then when I came back, I went on a couple of retreats. Some of those retreats are really awesome. And then I said, I want to do this full time. This is what, I fantasized about it for a long time, and I read about it for a long time, but actually experiencing the fruits of Dhamma was, incredible. And I just wanted to give up everything. So I had to get out of the Air Force and sell my house, get rid of my car, break up with my girlfriend, and, tell my mom the news, which for traditional, Mexican Catholic moms is not very good. They all want you to have kids, a lot of kids, and, all that kind of stuff. But she was cool with it. I guess she was like, well, it's better than him being in Afghanistan. It's an upgrade, right? At least I'm not in danger anymore. So then I was ordained here. I got my Papaja law ordination in North Hollywood at Sarva Chandra Buddhist Center, which is a Sri Lankan monastery. And then in 2008, I went to Sri Lanka to Maharagama Bhikkhu Training Center and got my Upasampada there. And during this time, I've been working a lot on Dhamma school. So since I first got here, I was put in charge of the Dhamma school activities for the kids.
Oh,
so for the last 7 years, I've been working with the kids, and I've been having a blast. Like, it's probably like the best thing to do here. I'll rather do that than all the other ceremonies. Working with the kids is fun. And then also, I was surprised, and I was kind of fortunate to, when I came to the sangha, there was already a significant amount of Latinos here. Most of them, a little past, middle age and older. And so as soon as I became a monk, they wanted me to start like translating and explaining things for them in Spanish. So I did that. And then they convinced me to make like a short video and record it and put it on YouTube. And then someone in Spain found me, and then they convinced me to start a Facebook group. And then after that, it just got out of control. Next thing you know, after that, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and it went all over the place, called Casa de Bhavana website, translated 2 of my teacher's books from English into Spanish, just released a book that I worked with on another veteran, which was just like an introduction to Buddhism, like multi-traditional, not sectarian, introduction to Buddhism, translating a few suttas, mostly the Parita chantings into Spanish also. Going to Mexico about twice a year to conduct meditation retreats for free, especially working with people of, low resources. Also going to Spain, conducting meditation retreats. And in the last 2 years, I was fortunate enough to kind of, in my university studies, working on my master's degree in counseling psychology, to be offered a position as a research assistant for incorporating mindfulness into both undergraduate education and graduate education programs. So for the last almost 2 years, we've been, running studies on both, the benefits of introducing not only mindfulness into the curriculum, but actually making mindfulness course like a part of the curriculum, where like people have to take it as like as undergrads, like almost as a requirement. So we've been doing that. I've also did 1 year of research into what would we call it? Like high conflict partners, women's experience with high conflict partners during and post divorce. So I did some research there for about a year with that, and I think that's pretty much it. I wanted to keep it very short. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much my story.
That's great. Well, in all honesty, even though we've had some contact, I think this is the first time I'm actually getting to really know you deeply. For instance, I didn't know that you were a veteran. Is veterans group something that you are looking into working with as a monastic as well? Or because that is something, I have lots of friends and relatives who are veterans, and in the years right before I became a monk, I was the meditator. So they would ask me questions about getting into meditation, and on Facebook they can still contact me. And I think that's a really important group of people, that are dealing with a lot of struggles and a lot of trauma and things like that, and they're starting to come to meditation. So that's a group of people I really admire, and hope that the Dhamma can help them in many ways. So it's good. And also we share a love of children.
Yeah.
So doing I tend to, wherever I go, end up being the one who starts a child's program. Even when I was in my Vasa in California last year, I ended up doing a day long for children, even though I was included Vasa at Aranya Bodhi. That's the way it goes. So, thank you for that. And you already have many fans in the chat.
Okay.
So let's see. I saw on YouTube, or not YouTube, on Facebook, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw a video of you. You were teaching in Spain. Or was that more than a month ago?
No, yeah, I think I reshared a video of me teaching in Spain in English. Yeah, like a week ago or a couple days ago, but it took place, I think, like 3 months ago. Yeah.
So Malika is a Sri Lankan lady from Australia, and she said that she watched your ordination. I guess it was recorded, or it was being streamed, or on TV or something. So
yeah, I was fortunate enough to get both of them recorded, both the Papaja and the Upasampada.
That's good. Well, do you have one of those like little monk cards that they give monks in Asia? Or?
Well, I filled out the form and I turned it in, but I guess there was one thing wrong in the form and they sent it back, and I've never fixed it, so I still haven't got it.
Because I always tell people I don't have an official monk card, but my Papaja and Upasampada are on YouTube, so they can see that. All right. So Frank is saying that you visited Clear Mountain Monastery just recently.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, very good. So yeah, he's we have a bunch of West Coasters on the stream, and yeah, he was just there, and so he saw you. So very good. Oh, I have Ian. Actually, we were talking about this yesterday, and a few people, when I was talking about today, and they said, "Well, what does the name mean?" And I quickly did a Pali search, but I wanted to see, well, what is your understanding of what your name means?
So the easy one is Vihari, right? Means Vihara, dwelling. So that's the easy one. Sanata actually comes from like Anatta and Anatta Pindika. That Anatta. So Sanata is one who is protected. Right? So one who is protected by the Vihara, which is like a holy place, by a spiritual place, something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, and you say there's a bunch of Sanathaviharas out there? I've never met another one besides you.
Well, in Sri Lanka, if you put Sanathavihari, some Sri Lankan monks will come up. Yeah.
So Jay Kala has a greetings for you.
Hola. I just did a Spanish program earlier today, taking refuge in 5 precepts that I try to do once a month.
That's great. You know, doing Dhamma outreach to Central and South America is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I've wanted to definitely talk to you about, have an ongoing conversation with you in the future. I don't know if I told you, my brother-in-law is Peruvian, and I've been down to South America, and I've at multiple times in the last 10 years or so quasi learned Spanish. Well, one of the biggest problems that I've had is that I don't have enough immersion in it. Like I've done like the grammar and the basics so many times, but that is one of my goals is to be within the next 10 years to be fluent in it. You know, I don't know if you know Bhante Gunaratana. You know, obviously, well, he used to go to Brazil, so he's not Spanish but Portuguese.
Yes.
But every year for 20 years, he went down to South America down there. There was a group of people down there. So there are definitely people in Central and South America that, you know, and even on being online, I've come across people from 5, 6, 7 different countries, right? So it's obvious that there are at least some people who are interested, right? And I think it's a good thing that we have more and more Bhantes and Ayas even to be able to speak Spanish, share the Dhamma. I think that's it's good to reach people.
Yeah, about 3 months ago, I went down to Mexico City with a group of Thai monks connected with like the Thai embassy, and we did a bunch of programs for universities, high schools, middle schools, and other organizations.
Have you connected with I forgot her Anagarika name now. The young Mexican lady who is connected with Karuna Buddhist Vihara. Have
I
you
don't think
connected
so.
with her? Oh, okay. Yeah, she's in Mexico City, I think. But yeah, so she's down there. She's trying to get back. She's trying to get a visa to come back to Karuna Buddhist Vihara so she can become a samaneri. But she's there now. But so yeah, it's I'm always excited to see the Dhamma growing in places that are not Buddhist places. even in Africa with like Bhante Buddharakita in Uganda, right? Like I was like, yes, keep growing the Dhamma in Africa, America, South America, Central America.
Well, very soon we'll have a place in El Salvador. I was speaking to a lady who's planning to start a place maybe next year, open up a place in El Salvador.
Very good. Very good. So Bhante, are you up to answering some questions?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Well, let's see. Sean says he's first, and so he has the first question. I'm on day 53 of a 2-hour plus daily meditation. I think some seclusion is the next step for me. Can you talk about secluded practice for a bit? Do you want to say anything about that, Bhante?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, very impressive. That's good. Kudos to you.
That is
even as a monk, it's difficult to find the time, to do it consistently, especially on the weekends when you have all these in Sri Lanka temples, all these dana ceremonies, pujas. Like the weekend is gone. I only get like an hour in the morning, and that's it. So that's great. Seclusion, some period in seclusion, but I always caution people to like have someone watch over them, like someone to kind of check in on you wherever you go, and don't go too far away from society, kind of where you can still be safe and have like emergency contact numbers, have backup plans, so just set yourself up for success because, you never know what can happen. So just if you're going to go to a secluded practice, just take all the precautions for your safety, even though you might think, well, I've done it before, it's safe. It's we never know what can happen, and it's just better to be safe than sorry. That's my advice. Besides that, I mean, you do 2-hour practice. I think you already know what's going on. So if you can practice seclusion, that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Bhante. This is seclusion can be a very tough thing. Like I think back to the once a year when I got to spend a month in seclusion when I was at Bhavana, and I mostly went the whole month without talking to people, but for a while it was tough. And then, but I always had people like, making sure that I had my food and everything was there. Right. So it's like, I could be secluded because there was that support system. And, we also should understand if we haven't done seclusion before, to kind of dip your toe in it gradually, right? Don't just jump into, I'm going to go away for 3 months and not talk to anybody, right? And try to maybe once a month do like 3-4 days in seclusion, something like that, kind of going in and out. Because even, in the suttas, you can see that, even most monastics, they every day had to go to the village, right, to get food and to talk to people, and then they would go back out into the wilderness for the day's abiding. So there's always this kind of balance between social and seclusion, right? And it's very good, I think, to make sure that you understand the balance and really know what works for you in your own mind. But yeah, starting to find some levels of seclusion, time away, definitely do it. It's like I would try to take at least every month, every 2 months, I would try to get a 4-day weekend and go to Bhavana just to be secluded from my home state and my job and everybody I knew, just to get away. Right. So yeah, seclusion is good, but ramp up to it, I think. All right. So Robert has a question. I find I get anxious about money or the future because I'm attached to an idea of safety. I know safety is not real intellectually, but how do I let go of the idea of needing conditions for safety?
That's completely natural. I mean, everyone has worries in the late life about money and about the future, about your career, about your children, if you're going to keep your job, about, what's going on in the world. Is it going to be a war, another pandemic? So being anxious about, potential threats, it's completely normal. So it's only if these things begin to impair your normal life, like if you stop showing up to work, if you stop taking care of your children, if it becomes something that's limiting your life and not letting you live your life normally, then you should, try to do something about it. But even then, if we want to get into a deeper Dhamma level and overcoming, like Vichikicha and things like that, when we're talking about the 5 hindrances, then you would not only have to have the understanding, which I think you already do here, formulating this question, you already know the intellectual part about this, but just practicing more calmness. So you build up this kind of protective layer of calmness, of samatha, to help you confront these situations when they arise, because it's something that it can happen every day. Anxiety about the future can happen every day. You can be late to work and be worried about what's going to happen. The check might not come in on time. Maybe your direct deposit comes in on Monday instead of Saturday. So if we use meditation as like a preventative strengthening practice to help us already come with some level of tranquility and calmness to face these kind of difficult situations, then that will protect us. Also be like a protective factor that we carry around with us. But being out there in the world involves some form of anxiety, so let's not try to like pathologize a normal anxiety or normal worries about the world. You should be worried. There are things happening out there, and so just try to find a balance between like being anxious about things that might actually happen and anxious enough where it's helpful for you to do things in the normal world, and then also work on the deeper level of working with anxiety as a hindrance through meditation and through understanding. But so I just try to avoid being hypercritical of ourselves and our hindrances or our kilesas and our we kind of have to be gentle with ourselves even when we recognize these unwholesome states, and show like some self-compassion and understanding, and know that we're in this difficult world and that we're limited and that we're human beings, and that we got all these other things going on. So that would be my perspective on it.
All right. Thank you, Bhante. So Abby asks, is Stan the cat still living at Empty Cloud? Stan the cat is still alive, hanging on by a thread. I think the medications are keeping him alive. He's going through his normal suffering, but he is still here. He's mostly secluded. He's mostly staying secluded with Ayasoma. I've seen him maybe once or twice in the last couple of weeks. But yes. And Ivy May says hello. Ivy May, Bhante is one of the only young children who watches Dhammapalooza.
Oh, wow.
Abby's child. Every amazing. Once in a while, she gets to come on and say hello. So hello, Ivy May. All right. So it looks like you have a request. I don't think there are any Theravada monks here in Chile. I've heard of one, but I can't find recent info. If Bhante ever comes here, it would be amazing.
Actually, I've had many opportunities to go, but it just hasn't worked out. And I was also trying to work out to ordain a Chilean monk who's right now in the Mahayana tradition who wants to come over to Theravada. So I was trying to work that out, but there's like visa problems and things like that. So you might have a permanent monk in Chile very soon if we can work out the immigration issues. And if anything, then if that doesn't work out, I'll go down there hopefully soon.
So the way things work, like I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, a friend who was part of the community back then from Peru, he says, Bhante, come to Peru. And I said, well, you have to like have a group of people that like gets my, flight and kind of does all that work. It's like, it's good to invite a monk down, but you have to kind of set the groundwork for that monk to be able to come down, right? To, the airfare and, actually airfare is usually the most expensive thing. I mean, we can basically kind of stay in people's houses as long as there's certain things like being able to be behind a locked door and things like that. But yeah, this is something that is a good lesson for people who want to have monastics come. The invite's the first part.
Yeah.
Then you have to kind of see if you can get a group of people together to, be that group that brings the monastic and deals with all the legwork of bringing the monastic down. So Frank here, I guess, has a question, but there's a lot of lead up to it. So let me. I don't know. I don't know if I would be able to answer this question. Let's see if you can answer it, Bhante. But I'm just going to go. Okay, so I practice a home brew of Ajahn Anand's Buddho technique. You familiar with the Thai, the Bud-O, like when they breathe in, Bud-O? Have you heard of that before?
I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar with it, like how to practice it.
Yeah, me neither. I've not practiced it. Method 2 by Ajahn Jeff, that Thanissaro. When I practice, I feel sort of warmth in my heart, and Buddho seems to be coming from there. I practice like this formal practice, and it arises by itself. Is a home brew technique like this skillful? It sort of arose on its own. I started with method 2, and when I became experimenting with Buddho recently, the two just naturally blended together. Can you make heads or tails of that, Bhante? Because I think, Frank, I think we need some more clear and concise comments on that. I don't know do you have any commentary, Bhante, or do you want to?
Well, I myself, pull from many different traditions, like many different practices. And then sometimes in the middle of one practice, if like it's becoming too difficult, I might pull from another practice, and then that'll help me. Then I'll go back to what I was doing, or I'll continue with the new practice. So, I do see a lot of usefulness in being able to know how to skillfully employ like different practices when needed, and not to be too dogmatic and just be like, well, I only do this because this is what my teacher said, and like I'm only going to do that. And so I think it's good to kind of be open, but also have like a base practice, which is like your main practice, and then you can use the other ones to supplement that. So I think he's kind of combining these two practices, and he found it useful. And then, you could just go to like what the Buddha says near the end of the Kalama Sutta, if it's like beneficial for you, for others, if it promotes intelligence, if it's not censored by the wise, if it leads towards Nibbana. So if you see that it's leading to wholesome states and it's working for you, then that's fine. And then, if you have the opportunity to consult the people, these two ajahns whose method you're using, then they'd probably know the best. So you should probably, try to get in contact with one of them and let them know what's going on.
All right. Thank you, Bhante. So Jay Kala has a question. In one video, Bhante Sudaso said that not interfering in a harmful event one witnesses is itself bad karma if one chooses not to stop it. Could you talk a bit on this? Some people were confused. What's your understanding of that in terms of karma, Bhante?
I'm trying to think of some examples from the suttas where something like this happens. But we do see the Buddha himself interfere in many things, right? Like the Buddha interferes over the water dispute and stops the potential war. The Buddha interferes when the Sakyans are about to get slaughtered. He sits in the middle of the road under a tree without any shade. So we do see the Buddha kind of like interfere in these events that would cause like mass suffering. So I guess in that way, I don't know if, the karmic implications for it, but we do see evidence of, the Buddha interfering when bad things are going to happen and not just letting them happen. Although in one of the cases, the bad thing ended up happening anyways, which the Sakyans were all massacred. So yeah, I mean, that's the only kind of things that come to mind out of the suttas that I could use for this question.
Yeah. Bhante Siddhaso has a very, very firm view on this topic. he talks about this, quite strongly. And I don't necessarily agree with how strongly he talks about it. I don't think it's necessarily fully supported by the suttas. I will say one thing, though. I think Bhante has brought up some valid suttas. I also would say that when you have an experience, obviously, if you have something in your direct experience that you can help somebody with, then you can help them. But if you see somebody who's being, I don't know, mugged, or there's a shootout or something, and you say, well, Bhante Siddhaso says it's bad karma if I don't do something about it, and you run into the, whatever, that's not good. It's like, for instance, like, I've from a young age, I've been like, I want to help people. Like I had the ethos of like being a knight, like a knight in shining armor. I want to help people, save people, I want to be a police officer or whatever, these kind of things. And then you realize like life is much more complicated than that. Like there's like times where like, so I'll give an example. I've heard many such examples in my career and in my experience. You're out in public and a couple is fighting, right? And maybe they're physically fighting, right? The guy's fighting with the woman, and you think, oh, well, we can't have this guy beating on this woman. We got to get involved. And then somebody goes in thinking they're going to save the woman. They start fighting the guy, and then the woman starts beating up on the guy that came in to save, right? And there's even one experience where the woman actually stabbed the guy. Like, oh, don't harm my boyfriend, kind of a thing, right? These are very, very, very complicated situations. And it takes wisdom to know what you can do, what your limitations are, things like that. It's not good necessarily to just jump, oh, well, I have to help or else I'm going to have bad karma. So I jump in. No, that's not good. It's also not good that you have like in places like New York City and like urban places where, just 30 people just sit around videotaping on their phones as somebody's getting hurt. That's not great either. Is it bad karma? I would say that, and I think Bhante Siddhaso also points to this very specifically. I would say that it's the karma of choosing not to help if you could. But if you could is the wise caveat there. That's the difference. So I think it's much more nuanced than Bhante Siddhaso. And those of you who know, Bhante Siddhaso and I go back a long way, and we've never agreed on a lot of things. We're like yin and yang, but we're still good friends, and we can still live together and things like that, right? And that's perfectly fine, right? Different monastics, different people have different perspectives. But we've debated many things over the 7 or 8 years now that we've known each other. All right, let's move on. Okay, so Bhante, we have a direct question for you. You mentioned Afghanistan. Interestingly enough, it has been a long history of Buddhism. Too bad that. Oh wait, okay, maybe this isn't a question. All right, so no, it's not a question. It's just the about the yeah. Well, this is we don't need to get off on this topic, but this is something that you understand when you start to learn from Buddhist peoples, that there is a long history of strife between like Buddhism and Islam and Buddhism and even Hinduism and things like that. There's a lot of stuff in the world that we as Westerners, we just, oh, well, you know, Buddhism is just like this and everything's fine and everybody loves Buddhists and Buddhists don't do anything bad. And like, yeah, no, this is the samsara state. This is beings with greed, hatred, and delusion. This is how it is, right? And Buddhism is ancient, right? Ancient peoples and ancient religions have ancient gripes. That's the way it is. All right, let's see. Any other questions? So we have 2 children, Ivy May and Isla. Okay, we have little fans. All right. Any other questions for Bhante? Frank is saying Tan Nisabo, or soon to be Ajahn Nisabo, is familiar with Buddha. Yes. Ajahn Nisabo is the person to talk to about that, especially since he literally is ordained by Ajahn Anan and lived in Thailand. So for sure, he's the one.
Yeah.
All right. Here you go. Brandon has a question. Bhante, is how to come to terms to watching your parents age and become old. It's difficult to see them become less able in their lives. Oh,
you know, I think the story of Hisagotami is very good, where the Buddha kind of had her go around the village and notice that it wasn't only her baby that died, you know, or only her loved one that died. So I think sometimes when we take a broader panoramic view and notice that, you know, it's not only my parents who get old, but everyone's parents get old, and not only parents, but children and myself. And, you know, kind of get out of this tunnel vision that we have when we're so concentrated on one thing, and we open up. And when we open up, we kind of find some relief in seeing the bigger picture. It's not going to be completely, I mean, it's not going to be a nice thing at the end of the day, but it can take away that overwhelming aspect of it, you know, that overwhelming anxiety of it when we broaden our perspective. So it can bring some relief. And I think just, you know, being very sincere with your parents now. Like right now, just be super sincere. Let them know how it is, whatever it is. So then if anything happens, you're free from any kind of remorse, you know, of not being able to tell them how you really felt about them.
Mm-hmm. You know, this is something that's actually been on my mind a lot, because this year, you know, Bhante, the last couple of years, I've been nomading it pretty well, you know, staying in multiple places, a month here, a month there. But this year, with the exception of 1 month, I've been in New Jersey the whole year. By the time I leave Empty Cloud at the end of Vasa, I will have been at it for 5 months. But I spent a lot of this year actually dealing with family. You know, my mom almost died and she's been recovering. But one of the things I've been reflecting on is actually, I think what shocks a lot of people is when your parent physically changes from like the kind of like the physical form that you grew up with. I mean, maybe they're starting to get a little gray and stuff like that. They still kind of look, but then there's kind of like by a certain age or a certain condition, a frailness takes over, right? A facial change takes over. And it's kind of a shock to the system for a lot of people, right? It's a real shock, a real kind of visual change, a visual reflection of, oh, my parent is now in a different mode of life, right? They're coming close to the end. I mean, it could be 10 years from now, who knows? But this is something as I tend to do. It's, you know, I've been able to be very mindful and reflective of a lot of people's illnesses and deaths and things in my life. And so I reflect on these things a lot. And I've noticed that, like, you know, it was quite an interesting experience seeing my mom look and be very frail and very different than how I knew her my whole life. I was like, whoa, okay. So this might be why so many people have a real shock, because it's so different. And because of my practice for over these many years, it has, you know, it was also a blessing. I had to be there with my sisters, right? This is a thing that for the first time, I'm 44 and my two sisters 2 years. So I 44, 42 and 40. My youngest sister is now 40. And it was a thing for me to kind of for me to be there with them, right? Like I'm the older brother, so they looked up to me for that. But also I'm the older brother who's a Buddhist monk. So it's like being with my sisters as they're kind of freaking out about my mom and things like that, and talking to them about, we need to keep talking about this because our parents are not getting any younger, and they're not going to be around forever, right? So it's been a good thing to be able to, I think that's what I would suggest. If you have siblings, to talk to your siblings, right? To kind of get on the same page of, as your parents become more frail and they're going to start to need help, how can you help, right? Like my sisters both know that in the years to come, if I can, if I need to come and be a caregiver to one of my parents for an extended period of time, maybe a couple months or whatever, while my sisters have their children and they're working, et cetera, that I could probably do that. Right? There's many monastics who have taken care of their parents, not even just for short periods of time, but for years. And so, this is part of growing up. Right? Part of growing up is our parents take care of us when we're young, and then our parents become babies, right? When you get old, it's like you become frail and dependable. You become dependent, right? And as this is the Buddha tells us how important it is that we take care of our parents, we owe a lot to our parents, and we should take care of them. So that's an important reflection here. Let me keep an eye also on the time, Bhante. If you're good to stay, you're always welcome to stay. But if you need to go, you can go. Just give us a heads up when you need to go.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay. Oh, so Diego is asking, is there a way he can stay tuned? Is there like a website that you have, or an email, like a way to keep in contact that he can find out?
Yes, it's called, our website is Casa de Bhavana like in meditation. So casadebhavana.com, or our email, casadebhavana@gmail.com. So any of those, you can send us an email, or you can check out our website.
All right. Bhante, yes. Do you know anything about the parami, or that you'd like to talk about the parami?
Yeah, my understanding of it is, I did a little bit of research a couple of years ago about it, and it's, not as prevalent as we think it is, in the suttas. It's more the idea that gets developed later, little by little. But I think, I still find it a very useful teaching. I think it's still excellent, even if we don't intend on being Sammasambuddhas, like even just for us, Sravaka Buddhas or Arahants who are aspiring for that. I think it's still a lovely teaching. And for me, the one that has stood out the most is patience. One monk, Sri Lankan monk, very young, named Bhante Chandananda. He's now in Fresno working with the Khmer Cambodian community. One time he told me, patience is the only paramita you can't fake, like even if you're just sitting there, like you're being patient, so you can't fake it. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. And then also the Buddha said, kanti paraman tapotitika, right? Like patience is the highest asceticism or practice, or something like that. So that practice really stood out with me, especially in the beginning when I started coming into meditation. Like I was super stiff. I was like stiff. I couldn't sit at all. Cold sweat running down my face, in pain, even the 20 minutes we do here on Friday night meditations. And I just had to be patient. Like I just had to learn to be patient. And then I would come to the programs and they were mostly in Sinhala. I didn't understand anything. I had to be patient. I wanted to become a monk. They didn't give me an answer until like 6 months later. I didn't go to ordaining until a year later. I had to be patient. So like life is just about patience. So, for me, out of all the paramis, I would say, for me, the most powerful one has been patience. And I think that's something that a lot of us now, we're not used to it. We want our Amazon delivery to come tomorrow. We want our coffee now. We want instant everything. We don't want to wait for things to come out in movie theaters. We want to stream it right away. So I think probably patience is the parami of our time.
Very good. So, question about Sri Lanka. Could you talk a bit about the life of a monk in Sri Lanka, the schedule, responsibilities, etc.? Also, have you happened to meet Venerable Katakurunde Nyanananda?
I'm terrible with names, so I'd have to see a picture, then I'll tell you if I met him. So I was only in Sri Lanka for like 2.5 weeks, just like to do a tour of the island and do my upasampada. But I have been, at a Sri Lankan monastery for the last 7.5 years and haven't gone anywhere else. And I've been the only non-Sri Lankan monk, except for 2 Bangladeshi monks that are here. But so I've have a lot of experience, but it's not that rough of a schedule. The thing that's probably the most difficult is like people just popping in out of nowhere, and then you just have to do some counseling and do a ceremony and all this kind of stuff you didn't have expected. So it kind of just, you have to just kind of be ready at any time to give a talk or talk about anything or listen to someone or do like a 28 Buddha puja for all 28 Buddhas, with all their little drinks and all their little medicines and all the things like that, and offering of flowers and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I mean, all Sri Lankan monks that I've met are so friendly and so nice and so warm-hearted. And, I've never seen anything that would be difficult in any of the Sri Lankan temples, to kind of I guess you just kind of get over yourself, like your own Western habits and behaviors and perspectives. And you just got to get used to being in another culture. I guess that's the hardest part about being in a Sri Lankan monastery. But the routine itself, I mean, it's pretty nice. I mean, yeah, that's all I have to say.
I honestly, I didn't know that Bhante Katakurunde Nyanananda is actually still alive. I only know the name vaguely as a very, very big scholar monk, but I and many books, but I don't. Yeah, I don't think I've ever read any of them. Abby has a question. When traveling and requiring a passport, are you traveling under your birth name?
Yes. And in the beginning, I considered to change it, but all the monks here told me not to. They're like, why you want to do that? That's a big mess. Like, don't do that. Just keep your regular name. So then I just followed my teacher's advice and didn't go through all of that.
Yeah, I think for Westerners, it's just much because like for instance, when my preceptor Bhante Gunaratana came to America, I mean, that was just his name is Bhante Hanapolu Gunaratana. Like that's his name in America, and on his passport and whatever IDs that he has. But for Westerners who you're already in the system, like you literally would have to go through the process of changing your name, right? And it's quite a lot. And so I've not met a Western monastic who has done that. It's just really not needed per se. So yeah, like my given English name is on every legal document for me. All right, Robert has a question. I've heard some teachers say that trying to actively get rid of hindrances using some technique is a form of aversion and should be avoided. Can this be aversion? Is this skillful?
Well, I can think of 2 suttas where it's kind of saying that how to directly deal with the hindrances. One is the Vitaka Santana Sutta, and the other one is the Dvaita Vitaka Sutta. So both of them talk about how to directly deal with hindrances. So I guess it's more if you become obsessed with them. You shouldn't become obsessed with them or oh, it's still there. I'm a bad person. I'm not a good Buddhist because I'm still thinking about this or that. So I can see where trying to get rid of them can become obsessive and compulsive. And that would be a detriment to your practice. So it'd just be about knowing how to skillfully apply the techniques where you don't start berating yourself and beating yourself up and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is the mindset of getting rid of. Like the idea for the hindrances, the Buddha says to know them very well, right? So you know them and then you know how to starve them. right? So it's not like actively trying to force them out of your mind. It's like, oh, ill will has arisen. I know how to work with that. I know what I need to do for that to be abandoned in my mind, right? So it's an act of understanding the hindrances and knowing them so deeply that you know how to starve them, right? It's not about like, oh, ill will, get it out of there. No, that's not how it works, right? So it depends on what you mean by trying to get rid of them or not. And so anymore, we'd probably need direct context from other teachers to respond to it. But let's go to another one. We have a fellow New Jerseyan. I'm from New Jersey originally. That's where I was born and raised. So as someone who has suffered from anxiety my whole life, I found Buddhist teachings to be very helpful regarding how to cope. What is the official Buddhist take on anxiety?
So we have to remember is when we try to find exact parallels from our English conceptualization of psychological things, phenomena, and the Buddhist ones, they're not like one for one exactly. So usually we try to put together anxiety and worry with like vicikiccha, is that exactly the same thing that we mean by anxiety in our modern culture? Maybe yes, maybe no. We can't say it's a one for one exactly. But the Buddha said that breathing meditation, I think, is the one he recommends for anxiety and worry. But yeah, it's a hindrance. Obviously, it's not a skillful state. It leads to suffering. It leads to pain. So it would be seen as anxiety as a kusala, as a kusala dhamma, an unwholesome dhamma, an unwholesome state. So at the end of the day, it is an unwholesome state, but it's not something, again, I want to be very careful when I say this, that when you see anxiety arise in you, you shouldn't be thinking, well, then I'm not a good Buddhist, or I'm not a good meditator, or I haven't, because I still have anxiety. I haven't really been practicing, or, so we have to be careful how we see these hindrances, because we can make like a double hindrance out of it, where the thing itself is a hindrance, and then our negative critique of ourselves also becomes a hindrance about it, So just some caution there, how we deal with these hindrances.
All right. So just a comment, Ivy May is beaming with excitement that you said her name. She is having some oatmeal and enjoying the podcast. Great. Very good. All right, just moving through comments. All right. This is a good question for you, Bhante, because I've answered these questions before, so this is definitely for you. Once Abby found out there's another Bhante who knows how to work with kids. So how would you suggest introducing meditation to a 3-year-old?
I think we should kind of take the Buddha's approach. The Buddha decided, well, partially because, it was him that decided. It had nothing to do with his father. It was him that decided that not to ordain anyone until they're 7 years old. So I think there is a stage in life where the mind is ready, more, ready for meditation and for the teachings. And sometimes we have to be careful that, just because we like something, we don't try to push it on our children. A lot of parents like to do that. And the kids end up hating it, and they may not practice it later in life because we're trying to push it on them. So I think just do it on your own and let them see you doing it, and they'll get curious. Kids love to imitate their mom and dad. Like, their heroes are their parents. So just do it. And if she sees the benefits of it, or her or whoever, they'll just follow you naturally. There's no need to kind of like put pressure or try to sneak it in there, like trying to sneak in vitamins in their food or medicine in their food like that. Just do it, and they'll notice, and they'll want to copy you. Like, children imitate. They love to imitate. So I would just say, just do it.
I agree, Bhante. That's perfect advice, because actually I was just going to say the same thing. Like, at age 3, mostly it's just imitation. Like, they'll just be like, oh, mommy is doing, sitting down and going like this or something like that. So yeah, that's although I think if you actually do it in front of the child from that age and you do it consistently, then, maybe they will want to come sit down with you and do it. But yeah, age 3 is a bit early, but be the role model, just as Bhante said. Yeah, all right. Brandon, just I guess a quick question. Wasn't there a sutta referencing the best thing we can do for our parents is to take care of them in the end?
I can't think of that particular sutta, but I do know on many occasions where the Buddha says things like that about how great it is to take care of your parents. I mean, there's that account where he says that even if you were to carry your parents on your shoulders, for your entire life, and they would defecate and urinate on you, it wouldn't be enough to like repay them for everything they did in this life for you. So, I mean, there's that sutta. The Buddha says that, you have 2 gods in your own home, which are your mom and parent. Your mom and your dad are both of the gods in Buddhism. And so, yeah, the parents are highly praised in Buddhism. So doing your duty towards them is like the highest thing you can do.
Hello, Cindy. Welcome. Let's see, looking for further questions. Douse has a comment. Patience. First day of practice. Am I enlightened yet? Yeah. Patience. All right. Let's see, is this a question? Okay, Dallas has a question. What is the line between repression and letting go? Many seems to struggle with that, considering any kind of control as not good, which can be bad. So the line between repression and letting go.
Yeah. So repression would be like, forcefully pushing something away or down, like repressing something, not allowing it for it to come up. And then letting go is not, not sticking to it or not attaching to it. So one of them is more of a forceful thing where you're trying to deny or not look at it, like through force. And the other one is just kind of like accepting it, like being patient and being open and transparent and seeing it arise and seeing it, go away. So I think we can think of letting go with, this idea of like detachment, this idea of being patient, and repression more of like an aversive reactionary response to it, of like trying to deny it.
All right. Hello to Karen watching on Facebook. Karen is my old trainer from my lay days.
Oh,
trainer. I stream on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook.
Wow.
So we have people that jump on Facebook and Twitch every once in a while, but most people are on YouTube. So Malika has a question. Do you have any online Dhamma programs? Do you have any like regular online things that you do, Bhante?
For adults, yes, English and Spanish, but for children, no. I was running one during the, pandemic time for about 2 years online, but we just decided to, kind of cancel that for the moment. Everyone wanted to start coming back to the temple. So unfortunately, right now I don't have anything for kids online, but I do for adults in English and in Spanish.
And that's at the website was that Bhavana.
Yes, Casa de Bhavana.
Casa
And
de Bhavana.
you can also find us on Facebook, our Facebook page, or Facebook group, and our Instagram is all the same thing, Casa de Bhavana. So you'll find all the details for our Spanish one. For the English one, you can send an email to Casa de Bhavana also, and then I can send you the link for the English group. Yes.
There it is.
Thanks, Bhante.
I like it. There we go. And I can also put it in the banner for later here. Let's see. Yeah. Having a streaming service allows you to do a lot of interesting things. But this is the place. This is the place for all of Bhante's stuff. All right. And I'll put that again at the end of Dhammapalooza when I put up all the links.
Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah. All right. Let's get back to comments. Oh, Gregory has an interesting. It's a comment, but it's also a good question in a way. A friend was concerned that meditation would result in them accepting problems with family instead of resolving them through therapy or realizing the root cause of their problems. Comments.
Yeah. So I kind of dealt with this kind of topic when I was at I was asked to give a talk on patience on Paramita for May We Gather, which was an event hosted by the Asian community to kind of inform people about all the recent Asian hate crimes. And, you know, it was difficult to kind of like talk about patience when people are actively being sought out for their race, their skin color, and being attacked, and then telling them, well, you need to be patient, you know, although you're being attacked. But, you know, patience is really, I see it as the womb for wisdom, you know? So when we practice meditation, it's a place where we gain wisdom, and then we utilize that wisdom to be able to, you know, solve the problems in our life or deal with things in our life. So meditation is not a way to kind of like spiritually bypass whatever's going on in your life, but it's a way to kind of see things from a different perspective and then go out in the world, you know, and engage the world with that wisdom that you have.
Yeah, see, I think this kind of goes along with one of the misconceptions that like even like people think about like an awakened being is like just some kind of like robot, like I am now awakened, I have no emotions and no personality, you know. When you meditate, especially when you do mindfulness, yes, there is an understanding of there's a lot of stuff that you can't change, so you have to work towards accepting it. But there's also meditation, especially mindfulness, allows you to see opportunities that other people do not see. So you actually have more of a ability to do something skillful than the average person does. I think that as Bhante said, with patience, right? This is like after the last 4 or 5 years, especially as I've like when I was started to be invited to teach at Buddhist Insights when it was in New York City, and is very kind of active group, you know, want to go out and be active in the world, and one of the things that I kind of explained it to them was that yes, there might be something that makes you angry or afraid or some kind of strong emotion. But the Buddha tells us very clearly that if we act out of these emotions, like if you act out of anger, then you know the simile of the pot, the boiling pot, right, Bhante?
Mhm.
The man's
Yes.
trying to look at their reflection in a pot of boiling anger, and they can't. And the Buddha says you can't see what's good for you, you can't see what's good for others, and you can't see what's good for both. So if you get angry at some kind of injustice and you just go out and say, okay, things have to change, most of the times you're going to make things worse, right? Because you're acting out of anger. You're acting with a mind that's not clear. So somebody who is mindful, meditative, they can act with a mind that is able to see what is skillful, right?
Mm-hmm.
To see what is good. And so it's actually an asset. It's a benefit to acting better, to acting more skillfully in the world. It's not a detriment. Meditation. That's what I would say.
Also, I'd like to add, that some of these categories here, they're not like exclusive. It's not like, they're dichotomous to each other, contrary. I mean, you can do meditation, you can go to therapy, you can look for the root cause of the problem in some other way. We can address it socially, we can address it internally, we can address it through relationships, we can address it many different ways. So it's not like I do this one and I don't do the other ones. We can approach any problem through multiple mediums. And I think probably that's the way we should approach problems.
Mm-hmm. All right. Question from Metika. Dear Bhante S., what are the positives of being in a city monastery?
People. Yeah, when you're by yourself, it's easy to trick yourself into thinking that you're making progress. Like, oh, I'm so good. Well, yeah, you're alone. No one's bothering you. But people annoy you. People make problems. People don't do what you want them to do. That's the best thing about being in the city. Like, everyone's going to annoy you. Sometimes directly. Like, I walk down the street, people will insult me. People will follow me. Some people have tried to attack me. People have threatened me. And that's all ways to kind of like check and see where I'm at. If I was alone the whole time in seclusion, I wouldn't know these things. I'd probably think, that I was like some great meditator. And then as soon as I come home for Thanksgiving, that I would be, exposed that I'm not a real good meditator because I never had. So part of the practice is kind of seeing how you respond to these situations. So, people can be great teachers, but at the same time, I'm not saying, I'm not condoning people's bad behavior, but we can find something even within that to help us progress in our practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a balance is needed. I remember I was watching an interview with a Thai forest Ajahn, and he said something that was really interesting. He said that sometimes our monks are in the jungle, in the wilderness for many, many years, and they hit a plateau and they can't go any further. And oftentimes what they'll do is they'll take that monk out of the jungle and they'll throw them in an urban place and they'll have them start teaching people as a way to kind of like, break through the barrier of, that, like, I think you make very valid points of when you're kind of by yourself, there's a lot less problems with other people. So yeah, people. Ajahn Chah, I think, talked about people in the monastery are like rocks coming together that create diamonds, right? Like rocks keep coming together and like you bump into each other and you create diamonds. So yeah. Is there significantly more need for Dhamma now than pre-pandemic? Have you noticed that people's psychological health has taken a big hit?
I think it's pretty much the same, but I think we lean towards some hindrances more than others, depending on, the world. So there might be a time where, maybe anxiety and worry is more prevalent. And there may be a time where sensuality and greed is more prevalent. There may be a time where ill will and hatred are more prevalent, but they're all still there, So it just depends like which one is kind of dominant right now. And then, but yeah, I think humans are humans, beings are beings, we don't know the Dhamma, we're not awakened. So I think as long as we're not awakened, we're basically all still in the same condition. We're all like basically in that same dukkha that we've always been, no matter what's going on.
Yeah, I think, there are some people who are way worse off psychologically because of the pandemic. There are other people who thrived. Right? There's people who, like, I saw stories of people who were like 300 pounds and during lockdown, they lost all kinds of weight and their like life is better and things like that. So like you say, it's kind of like overall in the grand scheme of humanity, it's kind of like a balance. But it is, I guess what I will say, in Buddhism, we have the concept of the divine messengers. Right? Old age, sickness, and death. And I view COVID as a strong divine messenger that most people in more developed countries and parts of the world kind of just didn't realize. Like, we've had it so good for so long that we kind of become blind to the realities of existence. And the realities of existence is, a pandemic can happen and you can die. Or, a burst, an electromagnetic burst from the sun can hit the earth and we could lose the power grid for like a year. Right? There's a lot of wacky stuff that can happen just because we're in a more modern time and we have less uncertainty. Because our technology has kind of allowed us to do things like live in a situation where you can flip on a switch to get light and use a toilet to go to the bathroom and like all these, things that can go away. Right? And I think when people get a glimpse of that, there's a lot of anxiety there. But that could also lead to a search for something like a Buddhist practice and, and finding peace there. Diego's saying, I found the Dhamma during the pandemic. There you go. Yeah. All right. We have come to the end of chat. Any final questions for Bhante? I'll give the chat a little bit to update.
Okay.
All right. So we have about 40 minutes left. And usually, if there was lots of questions, I would let it go. But usually we do some meditation at the end. So Bhante, you're welcome to stick around, or this could be your time to head out.
Yes, Bhante, I'm going to bow out.
All right. Well, Bhante, thank you very much for coming on. Much appreciated. And hopefully I can get you on here again sometime in the next year. I'll contact you again. And I think a lot of people really enjoyed you being on here. So it worked out very well.
Thank you, Bhante. And if you're in California, please come visit. You can stay here and maybe I'll kidnap you to Mexico one of these days.
Oh, I'd love Los Angeles, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, when I was in Los Angeles last year, I stayed with some Indonesian friends, but having another place to stay in Los Angeles would be a good thing. So I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Okay, Bhante. Bye-bye.
All right, my friend. Have a good night. All right. I think we might have broken a Dhammapalooza record tonight. I don't think I've not broken 30 on a Dhammapalooza yet, but it came really close. So Bhante was very popular. It's good. All right. I think we saw 27 Okay. So why don't we do our meditation? Whoever's watching on Twitch, well, good to see people watching on Twitch. You can actually type in the chat. This is cool. Like, the only people who can't type directly in the chat are people on Facebook, because I'm streaming to my profile, not a page. Well, let's do our meditation. So set your body up in a comfortable and stable position that works for you. We'll start with a scan through the body, bringing our focus and attention to our feet. And we'll scan slowly all the way up to the head. As we're moving through the body, try to pay attention to the balance of your posture and how each part of the body is placed has an impact on your posture. And also, this allows us to understand when we may have small feelings of discomfort in the beginning of our practice that can lead to large feelings of pain later on. So as we're scanning through the body, adjust your posture as needed so that you can stay as still as possible for as long as possible. Bring your attention to the feet. Focus on whatever sensation arises, like the feet pressing against the floor. Bring your awareness up through the ankles and into the calves. If you're having trouble connecting with a sensation during this practice, you can prompt yourself by asking, what do I see? What do I feel? Up through the knees and into the thighs. In the area of the thighs, it's important to pay attention to the tendons coming from the hips. If your hips are not very open, then this can cause some pain in the knees. So be aware of that. This is why it's often good to support the knees if they're not touching the ground with a cushion. Bring your awareness up to the hips and pelvis. The hips and pelvis is a very important part for your posture. It impacts both the legs and the spine. So pay close attention to how the hips and pelvis are positioned. When you're ready, bring your awareness up the spine through the abdomen and the chest. Ideally, you want the spine to be in its neutral position, not bent and slouching here or there. Those bends and slouches will be the most common reason for back pain as you meditate, if you're sitting on a cushion with no backrest. Another common reason is that your back muscles are just not strong enough to keep up straight for a long period of time. Bring your awareness up to your shoulders. Check to make sure they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Coming down through to the elbows and hands, observing how the position of those also impacts your spine. And finally, up to the head. Checking to make sure the head is also not leaning and slouching. Chin parallel to the floor. When you're done setting up your body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, try not to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body has been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, investigate, and abide with the breath. As you seek to follow the breath, your mind will become bored and will run away to the past or the future, across the world or the galaxy, or a distraction arises like a sound. Your mind will chase after that. Whenever this happens and you get taken away from the breath, after some time, it will slowly start to dawn on you that you've been taken away. At that point, fully acknowledge that you've been taken away. Try to bring back all your mindfulness and awareness. Then practice letting go of distraction by neither getting attached to it and excited about it, nor getting agitated and trying to push it away. Simply try to give it no attention, no energy, to let it go. And then return to the breath. Whenever you're distracted away, acknowledge, let go, and return. Acknowledge, let go, and return. Every once in a while, as you're following your breath, some experience might arise, such as an itch or a pain, that will be so strongly in your field of awareness that no matter how many times you try to let it go and return to the breath, it just won't let you. All you can focus on is that itch or that pain. If that happens at that point, then temporarily let go of the breath and use that itch or that pain or whatever it is as your object of meditation. Delve deeply into it. Try to understand it at its deepest levels. What is a body like that has an itch or a pain? What are the feelings and sensations like? What is the general tone of a mind that's experiencing strong itching or pain? What thoughts arise because of that experience? Usually telling stories and narratives about the experience. And what impulses arise? Strong desires to do something like scratch the itch or adjust your posture to alleviate the pain. Really try to deeply investigate the experience through that framework. Feelings, mind states, thoughts, and impulses. Observe how the body and mind are interacting together while you're experiencing that phenomena. As you're investigating that phenomena, if it fades away, you're released from its strong presence, then simply return to the breath. Try to endure that itch or that pain as long as possible, to investigate and learn from it as long as possible. But if your endurance is reached, you can't take it anymore, then it's okay to scratch the itch or adjust the posture. But do so maintaining your mindful awareness. What is the feeling of scratching the itch? How is the feeling of pain changing as you move your posture? How does the mind state change? The thoughts, the impulses. Continue your investigation even in the midst of movement. And when it's finally over, simply return back to the breath. Slowly open your eyes. Start to come out from the internal back to the external. The room around you, the live stream. Kalyanamita is in the chats. You guys on YouTube can't see it, but we had a funny Twitch troll who posted all kinds of interesting, funny things on Twitch. Thankfully, you don't have to see it. But I actually quite enjoy trolls. So, because I know how to handle them since the early days of the internet. With Dhammapalooza's only ever had once or twice in the last couple years, trolls on YouTube. But why don't we continue on as we do with our reading of the Dhammapada. Hello, Sindhu. Welcome. Affection. Giving himself to things to be shunned and not exerting where exertion is needed, a seeker after pleasures, having given up his true welfare, envies those intent upon theirs. Seek no intimacy with the beloved, and also not with the unloved. For not to see the beloved and to see the unloved, both are painful. Therefore hold nothing dear, for separation from the dear is painful. From endearment springs grief, from endearment springs fear. For one who is wholly free, from endearment there is no grief, whence from fear. I think I might have read this last week, or at least I read part of it. But we can keep going. From affection springs grief, from affection springs fear. For one who is wholly free from affection there is no grief, whence then fear. From attachment springs grief, from attachment springs fear. For one who is wholly free from attachment, there is no grief, whence then fear. From lust springs grief, from lust springs fear. For one who is wholly free from craving, there is no grief, whence then fear. From craving springs grief, from craving springs fear. For one who is wholly free from craving, there is no grief, whence then fear. People hold dear him who embodies virtue and insight, who is principled, has realized the truth, and who himself does what he ought to be doing. One who is intent upon the ineffable, nibbana, dwells with mind inspired by the supramundane wisdom, and is no more bound by sense pleasures. Such a man is called one bound upstream. When, after a long absence, a man safely returns from afar, his relatives, friends, and well-wishers welcome him home on arrival. As kinsmen welcome a dear one on arrival, even so his own good deeds will welcome the doer of good, who has gone from this world to the next. Anger. One should give up anger, renounce pride, and overcome all fetters. Suffering never befalls him who clings not to mind and body and is detached. He who checks rising anger as a charioteer checks the rolling chariot, him I call a true charioteer. Others only hold the reins. Overcome the angry by non-anger. Overcome the wicked by goodness. Overcome the miser by generosity. Overcome the liar by truth. Speak the truth. Yield not to anger. When asked, give even if you only have a little. By these three means can one reach the presence of the gods. Those sages who are inoffensive and ever restrained in body go to the deathless state, where having gone they grieve no more. Those who are ever vigilant, whose discipline themselves day and night, and are ever intent on nibbana, their defilements fade away. I think I remember what happened last week. I tried to do 2, but I only got to 1.5, just like today. So we'll do anger again next week. And then maybe a little bit of the next. Friends, we have come to the end of a very successful, very highly populated and enjoyable Dhammapalooza. It was very good. I quite enjoyed being able to spend time with Bhante Sanathavihari and all of you. Let's bring up the banners. So friends, if you would like to learn more about myself and the organization Maggasekha, you can go to Maggasekha.org. The banner is on the bottom, scrolling on the screen. You can find anytime I offer a retreat, make a new live stream, upload a new video, do an article, all of that you can find on Maggasekha.org. The top right of Maggasekha.org, you can put your email in and you will get an email every time I post. You can do likewise on YouTube by clicking subscribe, clicking the bell. Anytime I put up a new video or I have a live stream, you'll get notified. So Maggasekha.org is the place to be if you want to know what's going on with me. And for Bhante Sanathavihari, you can see on the screen, Casa de Bhavana. That means house of cultivation. It's a very nice name, actually. I quite like it. Casa de Bhavana. So you can you can go to Casa de Bhavana, and I don't know if there's a link on there or something to subscribe to, but keep an eye on there if you'd like to see what Bhante is doing. We also have Maggasekha Discord community on the Discord program. This is a community that studies and practices in line with the early Buddhist texts, the suttas. We are not a general Buddhist community. We do have a very specific focus. But if you are interested in learning about the suttas, then you're welcome to give us a try. You can go to the email that's on the screen, maggasekha@gmail.com, and send an email and ask for an invite, and we will send you one. With that, friends, I think, so Monday nights, we have Dhammapalooza every Monday, 8 p.m. We will be here for next week. Yes, next Monday, Dhammapalooza, but the Monday after that, no Dhammapalooza because I'll be in California. But next Monday, we do have Dhammapalooza. And while I'm in California, I'm going to see about recruiting to see if we can get some more bhikkhunis to be on Dhammapalooza with us. We'll see. I'm sure at least Aya Brahmavara will come on with us. All right, let's bring up the sharing of merits and close out. Oh, well, there's an issue. But anyway, we'll just do it. Dukkha patta chane dukkha, bhaya patta chane bhaya, soka patta chane soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha mehi sampatang punya sampadang, sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya, akasatta jabumata deva naga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasanang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share in this merit of ours for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, nagas, and yakas of mighty power, share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddha's dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends, until next time, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy, practice well, and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again. Have a good week.